Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bangladesh and the World podcast brought to you by the Bangladesh America Alliance. I'm Mainul Haq, moderating this episode, and you are tuning into episode 17. Today's topic is Rebuilding State Institution, NCP's Reform Proposals. You can find us on Twitter or X, Facebook, and YouTube. Follow us at BDUS Alliance for updates about our upcoming shows. Our guest today is Sultan Mohammed Zakaria, Joint Convener of the National Citizen Party (NCP), and today's discussion will be hosted by Kawsar Chowdhury from Bangladesh America Alliance. So let me tell a little bit about our guest, Sultan Zakaria. Sultan Zakaria is an academic, researcher, and human rights scholar with deep expertise in democratic citizenship, governance, and South Asian geopolitics. He has advised institutions like the University of Wisconsin-Madison, served as a South Asia regional researcher at Amnesty International, and held fellowships at RFK Human Rights and the American Institute of Bangladesh Studies. Zakaria's teaching and research career spans across Brack University, Boston University, and the University of Amsterdam. He played a pivotal role in garnering diplomatic support for the July Revolution and now helps lead the National Citizen Party (NCP), an emerging political force committed to systematic reform. He holds a BA from Dhaka University and MA from Brandeis and is currently completing his doctorate in education policy at University of Wisconsin-Madison. So let's dive into the reform vision of NCP and what it could mean for rebuilding the institutions of Bangladesh. With that, I'll hand it over to our host, Kawsar Chowdhury. Kawsar Bhai, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mainul, and welcome, Zakaria Bhai, to what is your first episode with us. It was been a while since we were, wanting you on our show specifically because, as Mainul said, that NCP is a new political party, and we know everything about its creation, how it came about. But what we don't know is, going around how NCP is developing, what will be NCP's manifesto, what will be NCP's philosophies, and other questions such as that. So saying that, I would like to start with my first question, which is, of course, if you could please tell us a little bit about yourself, how is it that you have come to be associated with NCP?
First of all, I'd like to thank Kawsar by you and America Bangladesh Alliance for hosting me today. I think Mainul Bhai has generously covered some of my works. I identify myself as an academic, researcher, and activist also, human rights activist, because of my professional affiliation with Amnesty International, RFK Human Rights. So I have quite a bit of human rights background as well. Due to my professional endeavor and affiliations, I had been working with countries, diplomats, foreign policy experts, and professionals across the countries, especially in the West, during Sheikh Hasina's regime, especially her last few years. I was heavily involved. I was involved with the US State Department's officials and think tanks in DC, human rights organizations in DC, to bring accountability for the human rights abuses in Bangladesh during Sheikh Hasina's regime. And Kawsar, when nothing was working and people were like giving up their hope that the things were not, we're not Sheikh Hasina regime a bit. So I think the external pressure, especially some actions from the United States, um, um, was the first meaningful, um, uh, I would say, accountability just that came along that really helped the cause of the democracy movement, pro-democracy movement in Bangladesh. And I was able to play my minor role in it. Uh, so I think that's how I have been um, primarily associated with some of the diplomats and foreign policy professionals here. And I also engage extensively the diplomatic community in Dhaka, especially the US Embassy of officials and others, to help people on the ground, especially when the cases of enforced disappearance were ripe in Dhaka, and people from the human rights community, people from the political community reached out to us when some incidents of enforced disappearance occurred, when someone's dear ones were disappeared. Being a human rights professional, we had some access to the system, we had some access to the people on the ground. So I was like one of those, of course, one of those loop that people tried to reach out, and I made plenty of calls to the Bangladeshi officials when people face those situations. Uh, I don't know how much that helped, but I think from our end, we tried our best to help people on the ground. So I think that's how uh, essentially become my um, uh, bridge with the victims in the Dhaka and elsewhere, with the political actors in Bangladesh, with the parties, pro-democracy movement parties. Um, Secondly, me and some of my friends actually were helping young people since 2018 or earlier. Some of the prominent young leaders who were trying to uh, uh, build a new pro-democracy movement beyond the mainstream parties. Um, I'm not going to name them, but uh, we were trying to advise them, coach them, and help them build the democracy movement on the ground. Uh, and some of those leaders, fortunately, became the frontline leaders in the July movement. So that's how I am kind of loosely affiliated with the student leading entities. And when the moment came in July, when everything was falling down, the centers could not hold it up. So I am after 5th of August, I would say, uh, when Sheikh Hasina fled, when everyone was trying to, I think, trying to maneuver the space in Dhaka, how how to protect the July Revolution, how to rebuild Bangladesh from the scratches of fascism. I think at those moments, I decided that I would like to step in. I would like to work with these young folks, and I would like to advise, guide them as much as I could. Um, and NCP March, after a few months, and before that they were in citizens initiative, NCC, and I became part of that as well. So that's how I would say that that's my bridge to the young folks and the new party. Then I become actively a part of NCP. Um, in
Okay,
February.
let me excuse you for a minute. Your sound is a bit going up and down. So can you bring the microphone a little closer, if that's possible?
Sure. Uh,
Yeah, a little closer.
yeah. Do
Thank you.
you? Okay.
Okay, so let me go to the next question, which is what can you tell us about where the NCP stands on economic issues? What sort of economic policies would an NCP government enact?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people is looking forward to what NCP would essentially become as a party. Um, in terms of economic policies, uh, let me give a disclaimer. I mean, first of all, that we are, as a party, we are still working on these issues, and we have some very smart people working on health policy, education policy, economic policy, uh, um, and I mean all the key policy domains. We will have our visions officially declared by the party leaders in the coming days and weeks. So and I myself have been contributing to some of the formulation of these policies. Um, so what I will say now will not reflect the official position, but you can get a sense of what NCP might offer in the coming days. Uh, on the economic front, we have been discussing, we have been debating inside what should be our policy, um, and we, given the history of Bangladesh and its imam emergence, and the desire for a more egalitarian society, not fully uh, uh, capitalism, not fully socialism, in between. So I would say um, a mixed economy is what I would advise that NCP should strive for, where um, principally it should be the free market economy based policy, but also the state will have some roles in certain sectors. I would say more prominent role, especially in sectors like health, education, transportation, where the public interest supersedes the interest of the capital. So
Definitely.
I think those are the areas that NCP would take a more nuanced position instead of blanketly leave everything for the market. So I think we are essentially going uh, to take those paths, not black and white, not socialism or communism or market capitalism wholesale, but picking elements, I mean, mostly leading.
Let me just clarify. I mean, like, if you take the example of the US, where you are now, would you consider something like the Democrats with bigger government or the Republicans with smaller government? I mean, what are you looking at there? Because they're both, a bit of what you said, right? But which corner would you would you rather see NCP at?
I would say the NCP's vision would be more like social democracy, like more
Okay.
Nordic examples instead of the US market capitalism. Um,
More of the European style economies.
Even within the European continental Europe, you know the Nordic countries had adopted more social democracy,
Mm.
like more welfare economy. So I think and it's a Keynesian economy that you want the government play some roles in areas and sectors.
Right.
As I mentioned, the interest of the people, interest of the collective will supersede the interest of the capital.
Right. But for the rest, we'll have to wait and see exactly what the specific policies come out as.
Absolutely, and
Okay,
as I
great.
mentioned, that these are the issues that we are debating, and
Working on, great.
sure it will come out.
Okay, great. So that leads me to the next question. So, which is other than economics, what other reforms are foremost on the NCP agenda? It often seems as though the NCP is focused on issues such as relitigating history, rewriting the constitution, etc., instead of focusing more on the here and now and the problems that Bangladeshis face today. In terms of policy, how soon do we get to see an NCP manifesto laying out what the party is all about? So, this is basically what you had just said, but this is more as a specific question.
Absolutely, our teams, I would say, have started working on individual policy domain, I would say, like the health and education, transportation, energy, scientific, like AI policy. One of our team is working, and I would like to also push the policies, the frontier knowledge, like the quantum mechanics. So I think NCP is a conglomeration of a bright young people and that wants to break from the past, not in terms of that break from the history, but from the traditional thinking that this status quo, like the policies that guide Bangladesh. So far, I think NCP will present bold visions and Bangladesh where they would like Bangladesh to situate in the next 50 years or 100 years. So those will be like the, I mean, say for instance, in terms of education policy, which I have contributed to some extent. Um, um, Traditionally, what we have seen in Bangladesh that the education policy concerned about um, like building infrastructures, the enrollment rate, dropout rate. Those are the kinds of issues, and the training of teachers, and here and I mean here and there, and oftentimes I would say some changes in the curricula and education policy. But that's not how education policy should guide in a nation. Uh, Being a doctoral student of education policy myself, I would say that. So what I propose that the education policy must address the three key pillars of a country. How we are dealing with the societal issues, so society, uh, uh, what education can transform our society. Uh, where are we now in terms of the societal values? What kind of people? What kind of human values? What kind of societal values in terms of family and collective we want to inculcate, indoctrinate our young people? So that should guide our societal uh, strand. And then the age education policy has to do with the state. So economy is state economy and so society. So you deal with society, now you deal with the state. What kind of citizens we want to create um, uh, as a member of the state, as a citizen of the state. So those stands will deal mostly with the democratic citizenship, that our young people, our graduates should learn more about the statecraft, about their roles and responsibilities in the state. Um, and then education should also serve the economy, right? But we mostly hear about the economy, um, and but we don't see any meaningful plan how the education and economy duo go hand in hand. We don't have any, I would say, any meaningful research on the idea of employability, that how much our economy, uh, uh, I mean, what are the sectors that our economy needs? What kind of expertise, what kind of laborers, what kind of skill sets, right? And then how our education system in tune with those demands. So one issue is that how education is matching up the existing demands, right? What is our economy right now? Is it heavily service based? Is it heavily manufacturing based? Is it heavily agricultural based? And if even within the service, within the manufacturing, where are the core demand lies? And if you look at all these substantive uh, details, how our education, especially our graduates, are actually filling those demands, matching up those demands, right? So that's on the demand side, that our education must match with the demand of the economy. But also we should not stop there. We should also have vision, right? We should also have plans for future. So can we design, engineer our education system to create supply itself, like from 50 years from now, where do you see our economy? um, uh, is it more tech based? Is it more uh, traditional manufacturing based economy? Is it knowledge based economy? And where do you stand in terms of the global transformation in the technology, in the knowledge, in the industry? And I think our education policy will also have a vision. Where do we see our country, our economy in the next 50 years, and how we can manipulate, we can engineer our education system, not only to fill up the demands, but also to create demands in the AI, in the quantum mechanics, whether we can create 50 labs of quantum, um, uh, quantum science, in the artificial intelligence, in the nanotechnologies, in the biotechnologies, right? If we are a science driven and scientific, if you want to be a scientific nation in the 50 years, how our universities need to prepare,
Need to develop.
we need to develop, how our government should create the infrastructure, like these labs in, like, say for instance, 50 labs in 50 universities. And can we attract based on the brightest from abroad, like America and in Europe? What we need to do, and if we educate these kids, if we bring the best and the brightest to these labs, and if we give PhDs, postdoctoral fellowship people, where does this lead to? What are the backward linkage and the forward linkage? How we can tune this up with the market? Again, filling the market demand, but also creating the demand itself. So this like a long plan. It's not gonna work in a short span of time, like in 2 years or 3 years. But if we have the vision, and you know well that the education is an investment, it, and
Definitely.
education is a long-term investment. It doesn't give results in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. Sometimes it takes one generation after and another. Um,
Very true. Very true.
Having those visions in the hindsight, when you talk about the education policy, when you talk about the health policy, when you talk about the energy policy, I think these are the crucial details that NCP will be fundamentally different from the rest of the folks in the market right now.
Very good to hear that. Very good to hear that. So then, my next question is, who are the major players in NCP other than the student leaders? How will you communicate to the Bangladeshi voters that you are a party for all Bangladeshis?
Well, NCP is a party emerged from a bloody July revolution, with bloods and sacrifices, um, participated by people of all walks of life, from all religion, caste, creed, and color. So I think the July movement, the July revolution, was participated by, I would say, except few partisan benefactors of the past regime, most of the people from all parties, from right, left, and center,
You were all out there.
yes, contributed to the cause. And being one of the frontline, I would say the outcome of this revolution, which is an NCP now, NCP cannot be a party of one specific segment or the other. NCP must have rooms for everyone, and I can confidently vouch that NCP has. I mean, most of my friends, even the small circle I work with in the Convener group, I especially uh, work with the Convener himself and 15, 16 others. And even with this small circle, we have friends who shared more left-leaning views, and we have friends who share more right-leaning views. We have friends who share purely centrist views. So it's an interesting mix of people, and NCP's beauty and as well as challenge is how we reconcile them, how we hold them together. NCP has minorities. NCP, I think, is one of the frontline parties, is going to be who has a good number of people representing the Dalit community in Bangladesh. So not only the religious minorities, but also uh, within the religious communities who are most disadvantaged. So I think it's an exciting group of people, men, women, um, caste, creed, and religion. It cut across every direction.
Okay, so in this case, who would hold ministerial positions in a hypothetical NCP administration? Who would be prime minister? Who would be finance minister? And who would be foreign minister, etc.? What do you think?
I think that's a far-fetched question, and the people who can bring down a monstrous dictators
Right.
like Sheikh Hasina should be able to run anything in Bangladesh. Uh, and also some people, I think, rightly concerned about where our expertise lies. Um, but if you look at the contemporary world history, people have become the head of the state, head of the government in their mid 30s. Even in the 30s, I think the last prime minister of New Zealand is an example how a young people uh, can lead the country. NCP has a very solid group of young people uh, who can run the country, even being the prime minister. That's number one. I wouldn't say names. Of course, Nahid is a good contender. He already ran a ministry and he has shown his characters. He has dedication and integrity in running that ministry. And I think everybody will agree that one of the few ministries run under the interim administration, uh, his one was one of the dynamic one, responsive. So morning shows the day, and he has. It's not exaggerating. I from my own experience of encounters with him, I think he is very prudent. He is very uh, um, unusually uh, wise than his age, uh, um, and he's a good contender to be the prime minister of NCP. But then again, I'm saying there are a bunch of young leaders who came from abroad, like Khaled Saifullah held um, um, uh, held his degree from Cambridge, Oxford. Tasnim Zara held a degree from Cambridge. Etesham came from SOAS. I myself have my doctoral almost done, and there are people completing their degrees from Cornell, and there are people from Harvard. So these are exciting young group of people who can lead a ministerial position not only in Bangladesh but anywhere in the world.
Definitely.
So that's the one group who can represent Bangladesh, I would say, much better than anything you have seen in the last 50 years. The second group of people that we are contemplating is we are forming an advisory council for NCP, where we invited experts and technocrats uh, who has subject specific expertise and experiences. And initially we are going to have around 50 advisors who would not only offer technical and expert service to the parties in individual policy domains, but also would be willing to run for offices, who would be willing to join active politics. So I think that's the second batch of people that will be on the portfolio list.
So that is interesting to know because I saw the Facebook post by Khaled, and that just said that you were looking for advisors. You didn't mention that these people. It wasn't expanded to that idea that these people would ultimately be given political, positions, or they could apply for that.
Yeah.
But anyways, how is that quest going? Have you found enough people to fill in the.
There are lots of interest, and I would say we'll have more uh, interest than we can accommodate.
Okay, that's good.
So Um, uh, we will declare the list in the weeks to come. Uh, but we have exciting number of our people and people coming with wealth of experience, are being in academia, are being in the bureaucracy, civil military administration. So I think that, I mean, NCP's cabinet will be will be a fascinating mixture of young and old.
Old, right. Interesting, interesting. Okay, I think you've seen the BNP's 31-point charter. How does the NCP's differ from it? Which elements of it do you like and which ones do you oppose?
Um, I think the first thing, I mean, I would like to start with the positive notes that appreciate BNP eventually coming out of his shadow of like what you have seen in the last 17 years of BNP politics is that it's mostly election centric, not pro people politics. So this 31 point demand at least is an important step, uh, positive step, I would say. They spoke, though vaguely, about what they are going to do in the in the um, in the state and in the economy. Um, uh, and I would say most of them have no specifics, and which is also reasonable because these are like broad vision for the state and economy. Like how you fix institutions, what do you do with the, like for instance, I would like to talk about two issues. One is that they spoke about the prime ministerial, I mean, two terms prime minister, two consecutive term prime minister. No one can hold office more than two consecutive terms. But then again, it doesn't have details like you can come back after one term. So like, but at least a qualitative improvement from their position. It also spoke about the bicameral parliamentary system, the upper chamber and the lower chamber. Though the details that you know after the rounds of reform discussion with the consensus commission, that the way it wants that the upper chamber doesn't add meaningfully to the reforms, to the idea of very accountability it wants to serve. Like it want a reflection of I mean the exact reflection of the lower chamber in the upper chamber. So like the first past the post, you have in the lower chamber when a party can get 30% of the votes but 90% of the seats. And so that skewed results will reflect in the, if that same skewed result reflects in the upper chamber, then you are not bringing any qualitative change in terms of the accountability, because that's, if that's the goal of introducing another chamber, the essence the essence is bringing another layer of accountability. But if the upper chamber is the exact same reflection of the lower chamber, it doesn't add anything at all. So what other parties, including NCP, is advocating that the upper chamber should be uh, uh, formed, constituted in the proportionate representation, like by the share of votes, which will essentially bring more parties in the upper chamber and will give much more fair reflection of the electorate choice, and can balance some powers between the position and the opposition. So that's where the true change and reforms come from. But BNP's bicameral system in the 31 point, it sounds fancy, but the devil's in the details, right? So
Right.
the when you break it down, it doesn't give you much hope. uh, I would, if I will have to compare the NCP's vis-a-vis BNP's 31 point, I think BNP's 31 points, as I mentioned, is a good first step for them to break away from this no politics to at least some politics.
To
Uh,
getting some meat
make
into the policies, right?
into the policies. But if you look at, if you want to compare with NCP, the BNP's 31 points are vague. The NCP's one will not be vague and meaningful. The BNP's 31 point offers the idea of change. Uh, but after July, the NCP's vision, NCP's policy visions will be step change, not change. Like a fundamental change in some of the
That is what the people are actually waiting for,
waiting
to
for.
listen and hear and understand, what the different political, parties have to give to the people. Because before it was just, you have to vote for us and that's it. But
Absolutely.
now it should be, what are you going to give to us, the people? And let us decide on what you want to give us and what you can deliver for us. Based on that, we will vote for you, right?
And this today's episode with you should give you some ideas of what we are thinking, what I have discussed in our education policy and
This
our
is basically why, we are having this discussion today, because we were also within our alliance, our core group. We were discussing who we should invite, and we were all of us were of that single-minded nature, that we want to talk to somebody who is helping develop the policy, not a politician, right?
right.
So we want to know the policies that you will be advocating, that is the policies that you will be implementing, if you do and if you can make a government, right? So
Absolutely.
that's what people want to know. That's what we want. Everybody wants to hear. So this is why we're having the discussion with you today.
Absolutely, and my pleasure to join you and to speak in front of the audience. And I'm
Thank you.
sure
Thank you.
after this episode, some people will have more clarity of where NCP is going.
Right.
And
Thank you.
third comparison, I would say, with the BNP's 31 points, and I'd say it's not only BNP's 31 points. Um, it's with all other traditional mainstream parties. They speak about when you talk about when they talk about the policies, the reforms, manifestos. They mostly talk about the state and the economy. But very few, an exceptional case. I'm not sure if you have maybe any talk about our society. So, what's the vision for the society, and where are we in terms of our social values? Because I often say to people that the age of state, say for example Bangladesh, the age of Bangladesh is 50 years, or age of modern states a couple of 100 years.
Sure.
But the age of society is thousands of years. Society existed much before, much longer before the state, the idea of modern state came into being. So unless you go deep into the society, that how a society thinks, how a society emerges, how a society transforms itself, and if we are not dealing with that, we are effectively touching the symptoms, not the root causes.
This is actually a very profound statement that you have made, because I could only hear this kind of statements from, say, somebody very high up in the Communist Party in China, how they have basically molded people's social behaviors, and then taking them up and up and up. Because now when you go to the eastern side, the seaboard of China, Shanghai, Beijing, people are very cultured, very different. And then when you go to the west, where everything, there's nothing there, so nobody knows anything. But when you go to Shanghai, people are no different than people in Western Europe. So there has been social and cultural development, right?
Absolutely.
I can see what you're talking about there. And some sort of development is also going on in Saudi Arabia. Many people don't know about it, but these things are actually happening,
Absolutely.
trying to bring them up into modern society.
Yeah.
So what are those social ideologies going to be? How are we going to behave as a society? It's a very, very important topic that you have hit upon. Very important.
Absolutely. And if you have the right vision, I shouldn't say right, but if you have a vision, whether right or wrong, in either the direction, if you have a vision for your country, um, the upper echelon of reforms like state and economy are cosmetic change if you do not address the society, if you do not engineer the society to
Definitely.
fit into your vision, because that's where the sustainability of your reforms lies. So I think that's the fundamental break from the past that I think NCP would like to bring, that how we envision our collective future, and how do we want to mold that future through the social engineering, so through the realm of this public space, and how we can offer a holistic vision, like, and then you have the state reforms and you have the economic reforms and this and that. So I think the 31-point vision runs hollow in terms of the societal vision. It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't have any meaningful ideas on that point. So that's how I'd like to differentiate NCP's vision versus 31-point vision. So I spoke about three issues. One is that this is a change, but not a step change. NCP is going to offer a step change, a fundamental change. The second is that these reforms are, I mean, if you go into the details, in the substances, these reforms lack meanings, I would say. As I give example about the prime ministerial terms and the bicameral chambers, so they don't offer meaningful change at all. Third is that it talks primarily it talks about the state and the economy, etc., but it doesn't touch the fundamentals of the collective, which is the society.
Great. The next question, I'll divert to something else completely. It's something a lot of people were asking, were asking me to ask you, is that I think you remember what happened with the banning of the Amu League, right? So can you please explain your particular thinking behind the demand to ban Amu League as a political party? So given that it has millions of voters, is it right to disenfranchise them? Surely the best punishment for the Amu League would be a crushing defeat at the polls. Or do you not trust the voting public to issue such a rebuke? In which case, what does that say?
Okay. That's a more delicate issue and much more
Sorry,
controversial.
it's one of those, a lot of people were pushing me to ask you, so.
No, absolutely, and I'd be happy, and I think one of the consistent proponent of banning Awami League, and I would argue in three, four strands why I personally think banning Awami League is the right idea. First of all, no democracy, democracy in the world entertains an ideology or a political group who uses democratic means like elections to usurp power only to disenfranchise people, right? So that's number one. No democracy will allow that. And Awami League is not a hypothesis. It's evident that they have done it twice. They won election in 1973 and they disenfranchised people in 1974 by instituting a one-party system. Second, they won an election in 2009. They disenfranchised people in the next three consecutive elections, and they established the literally the same repeat of the past. They disenfranchised people by literally instituting an authoritarian one-party system with fake shadow oppositions. My question is that should the democratic actors, the democratic stakeholders of Bangladesh should give them the third chance. And you may ask, you have to ask the electorate. Of course, I support that, but we should hold a referendum asking people that Awami League uses democratic means to only to disenfranchise people you twice in the past. Should we allow them third time? Should we allow them the opportunity to do it third time? That's number one point. Second, I strongly argue that Awami League has become less of a domestic political force, more of an external arm of Indian establishment, which essentially creates a national security situation for Bangladesh. Why Bangladesh should maintain an army? My humble question. The easiest answer will be to protect the sovereignty of the country. Immediate threat. Who are the immediate threat that we are protecting from our sovereignty from? You answer. It's Myanmar and India because of geographic proximity. Myanmar is a minor threat. India is a major threat because it almost envelops Bangladesh from three sides. So the first immediate sovereignty threat, if it is coming from anywhere, it is coming from India, and indisputable, right? If we have to maintain an army, the army has a job, is to protect the border from home, from Indians mainly. Now think about that. One of your parties sharing or deeply entangled with your primary perceived adversary. I'm not calling adversary them, but I'm calling them because in the military doctrine, you must have a perceived threat, right? So your perceived adversary is India. If Bangladesh has to maintain an army to protect its border from your perceived adversary, India, no national political party in Bangladesh should share bed with your perceived adversary. If the party shared perceived they're buried with perceived adversary, then either you have two choice. Either you dismantle the army because you don't need the army, because who are you protecting from? You are protecting
Hatred,
from
yeah.
India, and your main party is sharing or entangling themselves with and then the second question with this line is the conflict of interest. Entire top echelon of Awami League leadership is in India now. They are being protected by India, they are being supported by India, and it's open secret. This is not an allegation, this is evidence. Suppose tomorrow there is an election in Bangladesh, and Awami League comes to power with Sheikh Hasina and all these people who are hiding in India holding ministerial position. Where do their loyalties will be? To their protectorate who helped them in their bad days, or to the people of Bangladesh? When it comes to a situation when they have to make a decision that conflicts the interest of the people of Bangladesh and the interest of the people of India, what do?
Who is their Lord and Liege?
Where does the loyalty
Yeah,
will
that
lie?
totally is that. My son and I, during just when the revolution started, and they cut off the internet line, so we decided to download these old, war movies, and one of them was Braveheart. So then my son, he really hadn't watched it. He said, Dad, what's going on? I said, this is how Sheikh Hasina used to do that, because, dead of night, go to your allies and tell them, I'm giving you a estate in Oxford, I'm giving you a estate somewhere else in England. So you betray your hero, and then they drop everything. So basically that is what would happen, right? So the Lord
Exactly.
and
So
Liege.
exactly. So
Right.
and my position derives from principles. My father is a devout Awami League.
Oh, wow.
He is more Awami League than anybody else. He, because of his affiliation with 71, he is a freedom fighter. Our family helped freedom fighters. They protected them. They offered all the help, all the logistics, and etc. So it runs in his veins. And when I visited Bangladesh just a few weeks ago, I first met my father. Before talking about anything else, he literally fought with me for 15 minutes. That, I mean, he was trying to argue with me why banning Army League and etc. is. And I grew up in that same environment. I know I have passion for Army League, and my father is still, he's angry that I do things that can affect Army League. But I am talking about my collective interest. It's not about me. It's not about my father. It's about the people of Bangladesh. The
Your reply and this little anecdote about your family is just mind blowing, because it comes from the heart. This is your life, right? And yet, to you, which is what I tell a lot of people don't understand this. I tell them, look, enough is enough. Country first, party second. It should
exactly.
be for all of us. It should be for all of us.
It's about the people of Bangladesh. It's not about me. It's not about my father. It's not about my
Exactly.
family. It's the collective future of Bangladesh. And can we bet our collective future to Sheikh Hasina now more than she also was living in India before, but now after what happened in July, can we bet our future on her?
Absolutely not.
Can we bet our future on Army League, which is literally now a protected entity in India? So that's the second aspects, the national security question. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm posing this question for your consideration for our listeners. Um, and the third is that what Awami League did in the last 15 years, especially, and eventually in July, this is unprecedented. No political party has ever done that. What are they? First, Bangladesh had always random abduction cases in all governments. But being a human rights activist, I know that enforced disappearance is one of the worst crimes, worst human rights abuses. Because when you lose a family member, you do not even have the luxury, privilege, and opportunity to bury your dear ones. You do not know whether they are alive or dead. You mourn your rest of your life, um, knowing or unknowing that whether they are alive or dead. So that's why enforced disappearance is categorized at crimes against humanity. And very few nations in the world, and very few regimes in the world are accused of committing these crimes against humanity against their own people. And Sheikh Hasina introduced systematic crimes against humanity, systematic and forced disappearance in Bangladesh that no governments, be it military or civilian, did it to Bangladesh. We now know we have evidence, documented evidence that hundreds of people, hundreds of people have been forcibly disappeared. We still do not have trace about 300 odd people per the reports of the enforced disappearance commission. This is a heinous crime against your own people. No government, I am repeating, be it a military dictatorship in Bangladesh or the civilian governments in the past, including Sheikh Hasina's earlier terms, no governments in Bangladesh instituted crimes against humanity.
Very true.
And I know that extrajudicial execution is a fuzzy one because BNP also has bloods in its hands because it formed the RAB, and the RAB started extrajudicial killings and massive, and then only continued and accelerated this pace. But what happened in July and August is also unheard of in Bangladesh history.
I actually had a few friends who were actually taken away without any knowledge, and then just after, I think on 6th or 7th August, we found out that they were taken and tortured and all that. I don't want to name names for obvious reasons.
Absolutely. And it became a mafia state.
Right.
It literally became a mafia state. Hundreds of secret detention facilities. People
Yes.
starved in secret detention facilities for years without having their family know,
Where they were.
with
Right.
any knowledge of where they are.
Right.
It's
So
unheard of in Bangladesh history.
let's move on to the next question, because we have quite a few more left actually. So, what do you think are the key reforms that NCP would like to see before elections are held? Which are the ones that are absolutely non-negotiable for you guys?
Well, we already shared the list. I think upper chamber PR is a non-negotiable. Um, no one in our party, or even no one within the opposition parties. I think BNP, every political party would agree to that. So our upper chamber PR is a non-negotiable. Um, I think we definitely would like the independence of the democratic accountability institutions, like institutions of accountability, like the Anti-Corruption Commission, like judiciary, like Human Rights Commission, Controller and Auditor Generals, the Election Commissions, Information Commission. So these commissions should be totally independent constitutional bodies. Some of them are not yet. So we appreciate the reform initiative that they propose, that some of the institutions like the Anti-Corruption Commission, Human Rights Commission, Information Commission, all these commissions should be constitutional body, and they should enjoy complete autonomy and independence from the executive branch. Because the very idea of creating these institutions is holding executive accountable, holding the executive malfeasance accountable. Now, the executive is, I mean, they literally serve the executive, because the prime minister, the head of the executive, head of the government, appoints them, and they are not going to hold accountable the person appointing them, right? So there must be a separation, and we appreciate the idea of creating NCC, which the Reform Commission proposed, that NCC should recruit these vital positions of accountability. Even I mean, BNP is opposed to NCC, but I think even if, I'm saying for the sake of argument, even if they don't agree with NCC, we should come to we should agree to a mechanism where executive will have little to no roles in these appointments, so that these institutions can function to hold the executive accountable. The third and fourth is the judiciary and legislature themselves, and which frustratingly and astonishingly, I discovered that the entire BNP's thought process, their intellectual class, their bureaucrats fail to understand the essence of this separation of power. That the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary are three separate organs of the state. And there is a reason, there is a philosophy behind creating this separation, so that, and I repeatedly argue that the executive has all the raw fire powers. You have machine, you have bullets, you have guns and ammunition, aeroplanes, tanks,
everything.
Police, BDDB, BGB, military, all the raw powers of the institutions are in the hands of the executive. And we, the citizens, you and I, the citizens who gave them not to abuse this power, but to protect us from social crimes, from external threats, from any rogue elements within the society. So that's the essence, right? We give them this hard power, raw power. But what happens if they abuse this power? That's the principle, that's the very idea of creating these two other branches. That if one of these powers are abused against me, the people I hire to protect to offer me security, if he holds a gun at me, I can go to judiciary and say, hey, these branches of the government, these people, these individuals is breaking the code. He is not supposed to do that. And I elect some peoples in the parliament. They are supposed to call upon this ministry in the standing committee of the parliament. Hey, you are abusing the citizens. You are abusing the owners of the republic. And I am the representative. I'm holding you accountable. So the philosophy is that these two other branches is an accountability mechanism. An executive cannot be blurred with this. key problem for Bangladesh has been that the Prime Minister or the executive effectively established control over these two other institutions, blurring the line of accountability, amalgamating all the powers in the hands of the Prime Minister, which is effectively destroying the very idea of the separation of power. And that's where that gave rise to the tyranny, that the bullets that we buy to protect us is shot at against us. And there was no check. The Prime Minister directed the judiciary, and the judiciary acted as per the wish of the Prime Minister. The legislature became a rubber stamp. The Prime Minister ordered or instructed their lawmakers to behave certain ways. Bureaucrats drafted a law, and the legislature became a rubber stamp. So, astonishingly, the BNP's intellectual class failed to fathom, understand this essence. That's why these two organs of the state should be separate. And they argued with me nonsensically that we are curtailing the power of the Prime Minister by proposing these reforms, by proposing that the judiciary has to be separated, by
No, absolutely. It
by
must be. I
proposing
mean,
by proposing the idea that Parliament, the head of the leader of the House of Parliament, should be separate than the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the executive head. She or he must not be the leader of the House. I know there are some examples in some countries, but in UK this is not the case, where we borrow this model. So BNP has been opposing this, and frustratingly, again, annoyingly, disregarding the fact that these are the essence of the modern states of separation of power. So I think these are the non-negotiable. If we want a meaningful reform in the state, if we want our executive to function as their mandate, not overstepping their mandate, the I think these are the non-negotiable from our end, but we are not the only actor and player, unfortunately. And
it
fortunately,
also has to come from the others as well.
yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think if BNP does not agree, we should continue this pressure that, look, because of you didn't agree, you risk becoming another Sheikh Hasina.
Right.
You risk
Another dictator. That's it.
Exactly, because you want to you want to maintain this status quo. You want all this raw power, illegal power, I would say. If Prime Minister exercise controls over the judiciary and the legislature, it's an illegal power.
Right. Okay. Let me go to the next question, which is another crowdsourced question. So this goes as, what is NCP's position with respect to Jamaat-e-Islami party? Can you see yourself forming an alliance with Jamaat? Are there any positions or beliefs of the Jamaat that come into conflict with the NCP? Many voters are concerned that the NCP will become a right of center/Islamist party. Can you address that issue and put them at ease on the matter?
Again, it's a wonderful question, good question, I think, and we need to talk about this again and again and again. And I am unequivocally stating that NCP is independent of what the right-wing politics are. NCP is never a right-wing venture. Having said that, I remind our audience, I remind our listeners that in 1970s election, do you know what was the first point of Awami League manifesto? Though I mean, it was the height of our independence movement. The first point of Awami League election manifesto was that Awami League will not enact any law against Quran and Sunnah.
Okay.
So that's like one aspects of who we are, who our electorates are, what their sentiments are, and how what you have to do mainstream politics in this country. If you want to be fringe, if you want to remain in the fringe, if you want to, then you can choose the path of extreme left or right. But if you really want to do a mainstream politics of Bangladesh, that number one point you cannot disregard. That this is predominantly, I don't say extremely conservative, but a conservative population which are not extremist, but they value and care for their religion and for historical reason. I say that the reason Bangladesh exists in this Indian subcontinent in the current setup, the reason the half of the Bengali population almost are with India and half we have our own independent state, the half of the same ethnic group sharing two borders is the religion, is the identity, is the very identity is the reason for this nation's existence. We are trying to be moderate for time immemorial. We will still try to that. We'll continue to try to do that. But the reason for the existence of the country, say for example, religion is gone from Bangladesh right now. Why why the West Bengal and East Bengal should be separate? Why Bangladesh should exist?
True.
So the existence, the very existence of the country, the notion of Bangladesh, which is separate from the West Bengal, the Hindu dominant West Bengal, is religion. And I think this runs deep into our DNA, into our collective memory. And that's why, though I would say majority, most of the people, overwhelming majority of Bangladeshi people are not extremists. They will not vote for any extreme right-wing party, but they do care for their religion, their religious identity. And any parties wanting to be a mainstream political party in Bangladesh cannot disregard this fact.
Very true. Very true.
And
Well, I'm glad you have, that was a very good answer actually, and I'm glad you've, addressed that head on. Zakaria, I'll be asking one more question, and then the remaining couple of questions will be asked by Mainul, and then I'll come back in for the closing with you. So I'm very thankful that you've been so patient with us. So my final question to you today is, if and when the NCP comes to power, will it do they have an aim to keep the neutral technocrats such as Ahsan Mansoor in place if it is elected?
Well, that's a policy decisions the party has to make when it comes to power. But personally, if you ask me, I would love to. Because Ahsan Mansoor has done a terrific job in bringing discipline in the banking and finance sector in Bangladesh. I mean, after what Sheikh Hasina left, almost the ruin of the banking and financial sector, Ahsan Mansoor done a tremendous job. And any government, it's not only NCP, would be privileged to have him. I mean, it's not the question of whether we want him. It should be the question of whether he wants to serve.
Yeah. He's been doing some brilliant work. Actually, I don't know how much you know about the task force for bringing the money back. I mean, he's heading that with Ifti Islam. In fact, I wrote an op-ed which should be published any day, highlighting the achievements and what they're trying to do, because a lot of people actually don't know what they're doing with with the recovery of the stolen money that's been gone to the various countries. In fact, in England, Dubai, and Canada and the US. So, Mainul, I would like to request you to come back and take over with the rest of the questions, and then I'll come back again to say goodbye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kawsar bhai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions. This question probably is more an audience question. So one thing people are very concerned about the right now is the shrinking space for women in the new Bangladesh. What will NCP do to fix this, both now and the future? How can we make Bangladesh a safer place for women?
Um, First of all, addressing, I would say there are some unease post July. And my personal diagnosis is that because Sheikh Hasina brutally suppressed all political opposition, and that includes the Islamist elements. So the July had a fair share of these Islamist groups because they also came out big numbers and sacrificed a lot. I mean, hundreds of their activists were killed. Um, um, and so this is like a situation that we have to deal with in New Bangladesh. That we, to me, that sorry. These parties, again, I mean, because of my human rights work, I know, even say for example, Jamaat Islam, you and I may not agree with their politics, agree with their past, but the way Sheikh Hasina brutalized, I mean, her repressive regime brutally handled Jamaat. Hundreds of young people who were associated with Shibir, they lost their limbs. They were shot at close range. They were electrocuted in the remands. And we have documented all this in when I was working for Amnesty. And in the July, all these forces came forward. Now, how do you deal a situation when a group of, I mean, a strong social force who were your partner in dislodging, ousting a monster, and ensure that they do not become another repressive tool? So this is the question that we have to deal with, and I think the concern, the unease of Islamist gaining ground post July is legit. My assessment and my forecast is that when we'll enter into the electoral politics, these concerns will slowly die down, because historically what we have seen that the right-wing politics, no matter how regimented they are, they do not attract wider electoral support. So when you enter into electoral politics, I think that's the only way to address this socially and politically. The rest of the question is, of course, is the question of the rule of law, whether people should be able to intimidate you in the street, right? And no one should be able to do that. So that's the question of the rule of law, and that's the question for the government of the day. And we categorically and always urged the interim government to establish order. No matter who is the culprit, be it in our group of people or someone else's, the law should be upheld. and any violator should be held accountable for their jobs. So this is again briefly electoral power, politics, and rule of law. I think these are the two ways that we can address this.
Thanks for clarifying your position on that. The biggest issue for most young Bangladeshis is job creation. And what plans does NCP has to create employment in the country if they're able to come to power, or even if, in the place of an opposition party, so to speak?
Absolutely. So, what do you do for first? And I spoke briefly with Kawsar Bhai before that how our education and economy should be in tune, should be in sync with one and another. So when you talk about the job creation, we are talking about what is the demand of the market, what is the demand of the economy, and do we have a complete picture uh, of the employability scenario? That what are the sectors we have leverages? We roughly know that the garments we have some comparative advantages. Do we expand that? Do we do are we able to accommodate the critical mass, the middle, the educated people in the garments in the industry? The answer will be partly yes, partly no. Because the garment sector employs mostly the unskilled people, and probably 5-10% of the managerial class. So we cannot mass employ in the garment sector. What are the sectors in the economy that can employ this middle large chunk of the educated class? I think the two issues we need to address here, because right at this moment, I think our economy is not in sync with the supply of graduates. We have abundant supply of graduates in one group, suppose business graduates and this and that, but our economy cannot accommodate that. We have not planned it well. We need lots of people in the vocational and technical sector, but we are not educating enough young people for the vocational and technical sectors. So I think the job creation has to be the concept of job creation, the question of job creation has to be dealt in the whole holistic bigger picture, where we can fit those graduates and where we can train those graduates. And of course, one of the sector actors is wide open is our expert expatriates, right? The external markets. We have lots of human capital. How we can harness, how we can train our young people to send to everywhere. We almost have now more than 10 million people, but I think we can supply 10 more million people if we can train them enough. So I think external market is one. Internally, I think nobody in Bangladesh has a clear grasp and picture where we can employ a large number of people, because we do not have a solid study of employability. For NCP, for our economic policy, if I'm the finance minister, the first thing I would do is to form a commission of employability, study the market, and then reconfigure our vocational and higher education. Again, which I told to Kawsar Bhai, is one is we should be able to supply enough people to the existing demands of the market, and then we should be able to do some forward-looking re-engineering of the education system that can create its own demand in the market. So I think it should be a combination of the both.
Thank you. One of my last question is, as we all know that last 50 plus years, Bangladesh is dominated by legacy political parties. There is no question that Bangladeshis are sick of politics as usual. Now that an NCP is here, how can NCP best signal to the voters that it is different? It is a different kind of political party, and that it is doing a new kind of politics compared to its rivals. I'm referring to the legacy parties.
Thank you. And you were absolutely right in asking this question, because political parties are the mirrors of the society. Um, this is like it comes from the societal uh, urge and demands, and of course, history, time, and space that also play a key role in the emergence, in the sustenance of a political force. So, on the question of time and space, I think NCP has a very legit case, a very valid case. It is a party of the July Revolution that ousted a monstrous dictator. So, the commitment of the young people is unquestionable, is proven. They have given their bloods and tears, and they have risked everything in their life to do the nation a job, to oust the dictator. So the time and the space, which is I think a very good reason for NCP to break the cycle of the past. Um, Regarding the politics of the mainstream parties, the legacy parties, I think if you go and ask around in Dhaka or anywhere in Bangladesh, people are fed up with these existing parties, because I spoke in a press club event and I mentioned this. If you ask anyone what is the difference between the economic policy of Awami League and BNP, you'll scratch your head and you'll not find any meaningful difference. It's exactly the same. So they are same crony capitalist, rent-seeking economic vision, that that economic system that can extract maximum rents for their clients, and while the leaders become patrons in the both in the grounds and in the center. So this is exactly the same copybook economic policies for the both parties. What are the political philosophy? Political philosophy of Awami League is dead because of the pursuance of this authoritarianism in the last 15 years. And they abused 71 in such a way that it lost any appeal to attract any voters or anyone, I would say, except the fringe of hardcore Awami Leaguers like my father. So, what is then political philosophy of BNP? I'm afraid if even the most ardent BNP supporters will not be able to spell it out. What is the political philosophy of the BNP? It is used to be like an anti-Awami League conglomeration, where people from every direction, left, right, and center, assembled to join a force. So I think political philosophy of BNP is not much of a threat for NCP because it doesn't exist. For NCP, I think, as I mentioned, the biggest selling point is the moment, is legitimacy. Right now, if you compare all political parties in Bangladesh, in terms of legitimacy, NCP commands the highest legitimacy in front of the people. That its leaders led what was demanded by time and space, and its leaders did it unwaveringly and unquestionably.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I'm going to hand over to Kawsar Bhai for some concluding remarks.
Well, thank you, Zakaria bhai. You gave us, I think, more than an hour and a half of your valued time. I think this was a very wonderful. This wasn't. I mean, when we first talked, and you told me that let's not have a direct question and answer session. Let it be more of like a
Dialogue.
discussion, right? And I think it turned out to be one of those rather than just having a, me asking you and you just replying. So I had a wonderful time. And I think once NCP comes out with your manifesto and your policies in detail, maybe you can come back and we can have another discussion, maybe a couple of months down the road. I mean, I would love to, have another chat with you.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Great, great. So with that, I think we shall close for tonight. Thank you again, Zakaria Bhai. And Mainul, if you would
Sure.
say, a little bit to end it.
So thanks, Sultan Bhai and Kawsar Bhai, for this engaging conversation, and you addressed some of the critical questions that we have, most of us have in mind, being that NCP is pretty new in politics, especially after the July Revolution. And thanks for clarifying some of your position, which definitely is really helpful for some of us who are following your party since post July Revolution. With that, I think we are hoping to bring more people like you in the upcoming session. And to the audience, I'd like to say that don't forget to follow us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn at BDUS Alliance for more updates and more updates on the new shows and guests in coming weeks. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.